Now let's talk about what to charge as a videographer. When I first started, I honestly wanted somebody to spoon feed me the answers. I honestly couldn't figure out what to charge a client. And if somebody had just given me a cheat sheet of what the prices were, I honestly would have appreciated that instead of having to figure it out for myself. So which is what I'm doing in this video. With this video, I'm actually going to give you what to start charging your clients now as a beginner or as an intermediary. This is up to you if you choose to do this. Please remember, it's a guidelines and you can follow it and then tweak it as much as you can. You don't have to follow it to the T, but it's just guidelines. So let's begin. So first things first, you definitely need to figure out where you belong. You need to figure out your skill level. If you are a beginner, in the middle, or an expert. So I would say there's 6 ways in which you could price your service. So number 1 is value-based pricing. And I learned this from reading the book by Blair Enns. It's Pricing for Creatives. I recommend you go read the book. It breaks it down really well as to how you can do the pricing. So basically, the synopsis of what value-based pricing is basically saying, if a business approaches me and my service to them is probably end up going to bring them 100,000 worth of business. Well, I'll say, well, since you're going to potentially make 100,000 for my service, why don't I charge you 10% of that? So let me charge you 10,000 for this piece of content that I'm going to create for you, because it could lead to produce 100,000 worth of revenue for your company. So that's what value-based pricing is. Next is hourly pricing. And I know a lot of people on YouTube now tell you not to do hourly-based pricing. But when I was starting out, it was the only way I knew. I had the job and that's all I know. So at the beginning, it's easier to do hourly-based pricing because I had the job when I was making so amount of money per hour. Well, why don't I just take that same thinking and just apply it to my videography business when I first started? There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's fine. Start out with hourly-based pricing, and as time goes on, you figure it out. So what it is just simply figure out how much you want to get paid per hour, and then charge that. And then slowly you progress to daily rate. So, because I started from hourly, and then as soon as when I get comfortable with hourly, then I moved next to daily rates, having a daily rate. So, all right, if you want me to come out to shoot for a day, I'm going to charge you $150 per day. And then you slowly graduate. The third one is monthly retainers. And what this is simply getting a client to pay you every single month for a particular service. So take, for example, if I was working with a restaurant and I created content for them every single month, I could just say, hey, pay me $1,500 and I'll do 3 videos for you every single month. I'll come and I'll do the shoots. And they pay me that every single month. So absolutely phenomenal pricing strategy too as well, if you do choose to pick that option. Next is fixed project pricing. So meaning that you price for the entire project. So when you get a client and they're like, hey, listen, we want you to take care of all of this. We don't want to do anything. You handle all of it, start to finish, everything. Then you simply go in, figure out what the cost of the project is and how much you want to put markup, and just make it a flat fee. And then you charge the client like, hey, this project is going to cost you $20,000 for this job. And they just pay you $20,000 and that's it. And you figure out the rest to execute. So that's what fixed project pricing is. The next pricing model will be packaging your services. So this is basically having itemized things. For example, photographers are great for this. All right, for 10 photos, I charge you $300, you know. For 20 photos, I charge you $600, you know. For 40 photos, I charge you $1,000, you know. So this is packaging or itemizing your service into basically a product, and then you charge based on the necessary deliverables. So those are the pricing models you need to pick from. Now I'm going to tell you what to actually charge your clients and which pricing strategy that I liked at the beginning. At the beginning, the day rate pricing strategy was my favorite. It's easy to use because I could charge agencies my day rates, and a random person off the street who asked me to do cover their event, I would just simply charge them using my day rate. All right, if you want me out there for 8 to 12 hours in a day, you would have to pay me so amount. It's easy. Everybody understood day rate, which is why I love that. So let's start off. If you are a beginner, you could price your day rate at $150 to $250 per day. And this usually includes if you already have your gear. If you are an intermediate, what I would say you can price yourself is at $350 to $650 day rate. This usually you have a higher level equipment, you have a higher level camera, a higher level tripod, a higher level lighting system. You've already been in the game for a little bit. You understand more nuances. You are better than you were when you first started. You've invested in yourself. You've taken some courses. You know better, and you're faster even. So you can price yourself at the intermediate level. You command that price, and typically agencies will pay you that amount. If you are a DP, you can definitely charge that amount. So next is if you are a professional. If you've been doing this for a couple of times, you've done a couple of movies, you've won maybe some feature film awards, you've done this for a while, you've done some high-level commercials under your belt, you've built a solid portfolio. You can honestly charge between $900 to $3,000, around that range as a professional. So the next pricing strategy that I normally do is a fixed pricing strategy. I like this a lot simply because it's easy. I just need to figure out what my cost is for the whole entire project and how much I want to make from it. And I just put those numbers in and I just have a fixed amount. I like it because it's harder to argue about this price because I know what my costs are. So if somebody's trying to lowball me, I won't necessarily budge because I'm like, no, these are my costs. This is what it actually cost me to produce it. So that's why I like it, because if I did arbitrary numbers, if I pulled numbers out of the hat just randomly, if somebody was trying to bargain with me, I didn't have anything to defend me. Like I don't have anything to fall back and be like, I can't budge because of. But when I use the fixed pricing model, honestly, there's no room for negotiation. Absolutely not. If you are interested in the project-based pricing, I'll give you some of the numbers that you can start off with. So for project-based pricing, let's rank it. You have the small projects, medium projects, and then high-end projects. So for small-end projects, this is simple, short promotional videos, event videos. You're going out there for 8 to 12 hours a day, and that's it. You're wrapped, you're done. You could charge anywhere between $200 to $1,200 for those videos, right? And then if it's a medium-sized project, so this include like a commercial for a particular, a company that's down the street from you, like those kind of things, where it includes maybe multiple day shoots. Maybe you're out there for 3 or 4 days shooting different B-rolls to make a commercial, that kind of project, and if it's a company, you factor that into as well, things like that. I like to charge between $2,500 to $10,000 for that particular project, right? And then if you're talking about high-end projects, I'm talking about if you're doing major commercials, if you're doing complex videos, if you're talking about like a documentary, for example, you charge anywhere between $20,000 to $100,000. That's what I go with. So in this Excel sheet, this is this very simple Excel sheet that you can use to figure out how to charge a client or how much you charge per hour. So here we have the team member cost. So basically yourself, or if you're doing this with somebody else, how much do you guys make? And honestly, you can start off with whatever full-time job or part-time job you have right now. If you make $20 an hour, you can start by charging $20 an hour. So put your name in here. I'll put my name. So Fahad, my role is the videographer. And then you put how many hours you're going to be working for that particular day. If it's a 12 hours or 8 hours, you figure that out. And then you charge $20 per hour. So here, I charge $20 per hour, which is what my rate is. Maybe that's what my full-time job is. So start from there. So meaning that for 12 hours, I get paid $240. Now, you also have to factor in what other costs do you have? Rental costs. So for example, if I'm going to be renting an equipment for this thing, let's just do my mic, and then the mic for this, because maybe we're doing an interview and it's going to be for, 12 hours. You figure out how much it costs. Maybe it costs, when you rent it at a place, it costs maybe $3 to rent per hour, or you could reverse it when you go to those rental places. They tell you what the price is. Maybe it costs us $36 to rent the microphone. Now it's $36. Now what's our total cost? It's $240, which is my labor hours, and the rental cost of $36. So now our total cost for this is going to cost us $276. Now we look, okay, all right, how much profit margins do we want to make? Simple. Maybe you say, all right, I just want an extra $100 in this, you know? So what this is, you put in your project budget. So let's assume you say this is 376, an additional $100 is what I want to make in profit. Now you know, all right, good. I know how much it's going to cost me in labor, which is $20. And then I know how much I'm going to be charging the guests, which is $31, to be able to make my profit margin and be able to go home happy. So this is how you can use the hourly based pricing to figure out if you are just starting out. This is the easiest way I would recommend. So if you decide to charge your client a fixed project fee and you just want to calculate all your costs and just simply charge them a flat amount to your client, you can definitely do that. So here, let's look at this Excel sheet. This would be great for that. So with this Excel sheet, you can just simply look into it. You can figure out what your pre-production cost is. So if, for example, you're going to be hiring a producer and it's going to cost you, $35 an hour, and you're going to need them for 8 hours, you calculate how much that is. And then if you're going to be traveling for this, maybe you have to travel to a different city, you put in that amount and in your total, which is $780 for pre-production cost. Your production cost, you have crew salary. It's just yourself. You factor that in, you get paid $20 an hour for 8 hours for this project. You figure it's going to take 8 hours to complete, and then you're make $224 from this. You also figure out how much it's going to cost you to rent the equipment. If it's $600, you put that for all the gears you're going to rent. Sound production, if you're going to hire a sound guy and it's going to take 8 hours and charge you $18, you simply impute those information and you have your total. Makeup and hair, location, and expenses, you figure how much those are going to cost you and you have your total. So you know what your pre-production cost is. Now you know what your production cost is. Also, you want to know what your post-production cost is. For example, editing takes a lot of time. So all right, it's going to take me 24 hours to edit this, and I'm going to get paid $20 an hour for each hour I spent editing this video, and then total it comes to $500. And then also, if you're going to purchase storage for this entire project, you know how it is as a videographer, you always factor in storage. I recommend you do as well. So storage is going to cost $230. You factor all that in. If there's any additional expenses you incur, you put that in. And then now you know what your project cost is. It's going to cost you $4,038 to produce this. So you can simply charge the guest $4,038 for this project, and you can defend your pricing with this, because this makes the most sense for you to keep staying afloat in business, because you factor in the cost and how much everything's going to make and how much you're going to make. I would say go with this option if you've graduated from the hourly based pricing and you want to go to more of a fixed project pricing. Part of this video. So the first part of the series, we talked about common pricing models for videographers. So today we're going to be looking, diving a little bit deeper into the frequently asked questions when it comes to pricing strategies for videographers. So whether you're starting out, you're looking to refine your approach, I know these tips will be really helpful. And here are the questions. So the first question is, how do I determine my value for value-based pricing? So we talked about this previously, but let's go a little bit deeper. So when we talk about value-based pricing, it's not just about how good your video looks, and it's about the results you bring for the client. So think about it. So you have to ask yourself, does the video you help them create generate more sales? Does it boost their brand visibility? And maybe it saves them even time or helps them do something more efficiently. So what you want to try and do is quantify the value provided for them. If your video helps a client get more sales, can you track it with accurate data? If you've worked with a client, do they have testimonials of or case studies of somebody who you've worked with before and the impact it had? You can use that to justify your rates. So that's a good way to look at value-based pricing and how you can determine what your value-based pricing is. So the second question here is, what if a client pushes back on my rates? Well, that's a great question. This is a very good question. And it happens sometimes. So you have to know, you have to be prepared. So if a client challenges your pricing, don't panic. It's all about being prepared. So be clear on why your rates are what they are. You want to highlight your expertise, the time and effort you put into that particular project, and also the results you will deliver for them. If they're on a tight budget, what I normally recommend is, offering a different package, something that's more budget friendly for them, and then maybe reduce the scope of work, the amount of deliverables.
So like I said, what you want to do is you really don't want to undervalue yourself. You don't want to undervalue yourself. You want to make sure that you have a bottom line, meaning that you calculate, you would not go past this threshold. Like this is the minimum, your minimum viable amount that you're not willing to go past. So once you have that number and it feels right for you, stick with it. And honestly, sometimes you should be comfortable saying no to certain projects, especially if you feel pressured or feel forced into it, and you know it's going to be the amount they're about to pay you, it's not worth the value you're providing. Feel free to walk away. And honestly, it sets you apart and it sets the tone moving forward. The next question is, how often should I review and adjust my price? Now, this is very critical. It depends on what kind of market you're in. So you should definitely be reviewing your rates at least once a year. So if you're in a fast-paced market, you might want to revisit it every often. And sometimes you might want to look at it like every 2 months, after a project. Because what you could end up doing if you're in a fast-paced environment and your scope of work either begins to change and evolve, you can definitely review your pricing basically after every project. That's also possible. So if you just worked on a project, you've definitely improved your skill and it's something new you've added to your belt, your prices should change as well. So think about that. But the rule of thumb is definitely once a year. If you're in a fast-paced market, you want to do it more frequently. As you gain more experience, your portfolio is going to grow, your value increases. Change. You must well just start changing your rates. You must well change your rates. So don't just compare your rates to other people in the industry. So also think about what other people are charging. Always keep that in mind, but let that not be your only factor of determining what your price will be. Because you have to also look at how much you're growing, and think about that, and how much in terms of capacity you can handle. Are you hiring more people on your team? Are you getting more softwares? Are you getting more skills under your belt? Like those things affect your prices and your rates. So think about that. So question number 4 is, what about travel expenses? How do I factor those into my pricing? Now, travel cost is a bit of a tricky area, but what's the really important thing here is just be transparent from the start. You see what I mean? So if for a project and it's going to be local, you could just have maybe a flat fee and that could be included, right? And if it's for like somewhere you have to go to another state or something like that, you definitely want to factor in the long distance of travel and hauling all your equipment and all of that to a whole another place. We had a shoot where we had to travel to the States. Our company is in Canada, we're operating in Canada, but we had to do some projects in the States. And to travel, we definitely put that on the customer. Like, hey, listen, here is what the project is going to cost, but travel expenses, this is what it's going to cost for our flights, accommodation, those things. You want to include that, your car rentals, all of that cost, you want to include that separately. And you want to just be transparent. Just be transparent and put in the proposal or the contracts beforehand. And if you are not 100% sure, you can always have room where you say miscellaneous, or you can definitely have it a situation where you can present the receipt and you can have it refunded back to you, or they can actually pay it for you to handle your transportation and your accommodation. So up to you as to how you want to go about that. But honestly, if you put in a proposal and you're transparent with it, it typically works out. It's not that difficult to get people to take care of your travel expenses. Um, the next question is, how do I handle revisions? Now, and do they include in my prices? Are they included in my prices? So, revisions. Here's what we do. Now, I think majority of people do the same thing as well. So when you're quoting for a price for a project, it's super important to outline how many revisions are included in the price. A common practice is just to include 1 or 2 rounds. So if you are going to shoot a wedding and um, they're asking for revisions, you want to put in a package, hey, you get 1 review including this package. And if you want more than that, there is going to be another charge to that. You want to factor that in because revisions honestly could take a lot, especially depends on the type of project you're working on. So revisions is a lot of work too as well. So they could imagine editing a music video or wedding video where you've already added the music and you've edited, and they said, wait, hey, we don't like the music. You have to re-edit everything again to match a new pace to the new music that you're picking. So you want to make sure that you factor that in. So don't leave that out. So and also it doesn't change this. It also helps with the scope of what is required on that project. If you allow, you know, as many revisions as much as possible, you can end up going for a project that was supposed to be a small project and then going to a big one because they kept on asking you to add that, add this, add that. And you don't want to keep doing that for free. So you want to make sure that, and you want to make sure you're compensated for the work you do. So if you are sending a proposal, clearly specify what the scope is and how many revisions they get. It's very important. Next is, what if a project goes over the estimated time? So this happens, but here's some things. Accurately estimate what or how much work you have done and time you've spent on it. If the project goes overdue to the client's changing the scope, you should renegotiate the price. Make sure the document changed, you can only communicate clearly to your client that, for this additional time or resource, these are the resources required to complete it, I'll definitely need to be compensated. So you definitely just simply send your charges for those new alterations. But you want to make sure that you're properly tracking. So but if there's a delay due to something unforeseen, like if, for example, if you have an equipment failure, like, sometimes your hard drive could just malfunction, or, weather conditions, or honestly, just be transparent with them and let them know, and just be proactive, and it should be fine. So next question is, how do I handle rush projects? Should I charge a premium? So yes. So when it comes to rush projects, right, you definitely want to charge a premium, because what they're basically requiring is for you to prioritize them. Drop everything you're doing, and they're the only client at the moment, and that extra effort should be compensated. You know what I mean? So you can charge a rush fee, a certain percentage of the project cost, or just a fixed premium, so anybody can always use. Just be sure to clarify the outlines, of these fees in your contract when you send the proposals, so that the client knows what to expect and when to expect the project. So yes, so when it comes to rush projects, we definitely have a flat fee, which we charge for your project to be rushed and handed to you immediately. So yes, so don't skip on that. So next is, what payment methods should I accept? Now listen, you want to make sure that you make this as easy as possible for your clients to pay. You should accept all kinds of payments, whether it's PayPal, Stripe, bank transfers. Stripe is one of the best ones. I'll definitely recommend you getting a Stripe account for your business. The reason why is because one thing is, you can create invoices, receipts, you can send payment links. So it allows you to create beautiful pages, beautiful payment pages to send to your customers. And one thing you want to do about is, especially in this business as a freelancer or a company, presentation matters a lot. So you want to make sure that when you send the payment method, you want to make sure it's easy, it's presentable, and you don't want any barriers when it comes to collecting your money, basically. So Stripe is great. It's great for it handles everything. It also gives you your reports, your sales. It connects with every single bank, like it works with Visa, any type of payment, form of payment, it accepts it. So I definitely recommend, if there's any software I recommend, it's definitely Stripe, honestly. And they do not charge much in terms of like fees, transaction fees. So it's quite reasonable, and I'll definitely recommend that. Okay. Next is, should I require a contract for every project? Now, the thing is, 100%. You definitely want to require a contract for every single project. Now, a contract is it's just not for formality. It's to protect both you and your client, like I previously mentioned. Like, it lays out the scope of what both parties are supposed to do. It lays out, you guys know what the timelines are, what the payment terms are. and the nitty-gritty and payment is what kind of payment structure you have it. Is it a system where they're paying you completely upfront, or are you doing a 50% upfront first and then 50% on delivery? Or is all the payments just paid once everything is completed and done? The contracts would have all this information. And if something goes wrong, uh, what happens? That's going to be stated in the contract. It has to be stated in the contract. If this go wrong, this is how we're going to be resolving the issue. And who has the onus on, provide all the information? Like, you know what I mean? So you want to make sure that you have a proper contract in place for every single project that you are working on. So let's look at question number 10. So beyond the calculators you showed, so basically I presented, what other tools can help you with pricing? So in addition to the pricing calculators that we talked about that I presented to you, and if you want to access those, you can access them on my website, fahadsuleiman.com. So basically there's some other great tools that can be helpful. For example, what could be helpful is just some project management softwares, like, you know what I mean? They can help you track time, your expenses, and deadlines, and especially especially when you're working on multiple different projects. So there's a lot of accounting software out there super helpful to keep track of your finances and calculate your overhead. So you just pick whichever one works best for you. So yeah, so some few things that I think I struggled with later on was honestly communicating my price. So this is something that I just want to give as a tip for those people who are going into this. A lot of people struggle with saying their price out loud. Like if you ever hesitated when telling a client your rates, like you're not alone. The key there is the confidence and clarity. And earlier on, when we used to charge maybe $50, $500 for a video, and we had to go up to maybe 1,000 to 2,000 a video, it was harder to say those higher prices. And especially now when we got to 10,000, saying 10,000 for a video sounded so wow, it's so difficult. You're nervous, you're sweating when you're calling out your prices. Honestly, a lot of creatives have this problem. It's pretty normal. But here's a simple trick. What I want you to do is honestly, before you go over presentation, practice saying your prices out loud. And when you're out talking to people, just tell them what you normally charge for your videos, even though they're not actual customers. Because what you're doing is just practicing saying your price. So for this project, you could say my rate would be $2,000 because it includes Y and Z. And at the end of the day, the person who receives this video, this is what they're getting. They're getting more visibility to their brand, and they're going to increase their sales by X numbers. Those are things you want to practice. It helps you build the confidence. And honestly, clients are more willing to accept the pricing with decision if you sound unsure, they're going to be hesitant to want to do business with you. So you want to practice that with so much confidence. And when you do say it, you want to make the client feel very reassured that they know you will be the best person to handle this project. So, all right, so that wraps up our part 2 when it comes to pricing. Frequently asked questions for videographers. So we covered everything from handling pricing objections, travel costs, to contract, to revisions, and even how to confidently state your rate. So if you found this helpful, I really want you to reach out. Feel free to reach out to me at fahadsuleiman.com. I'd love to help in any way I can. And if you have any more questions, that'll be great for me to answer those. And if you want to make pricing easier, just watch this video again. Thank you very much.
Hi, in today's video, we'll be talking about how to do bookkeeping for your freelance business. A quick story before I begin. We had a meeting with an investor not too long ago who wanted to invest in our videography freelance business, in my videography freelance business. And unfortunately, I didn't keep proper bookkeeping, and the investor could not see the financial health of our business. And unfortunately, that opportunity fell through, and we lost that opportunity. So the reason why I'm creating this video is for those of you who might have that opportunity in the future, you do not make the same mistake that I did. So given that, let's get into it. So first things first. What is bookkeeping? Bookkeeping, just think of it as a financial diary of your business. That's it. Now, why should you do proper bookkeeping? Number one, it's so you can track all your transactions to know if you're making a profit or if you're losing. Two, you need proper bookkeeping to be able to make proper decisions for your business. You need to know when to stop spending or if it's fine to keep spending. Thirdly, you need to know how much you'll be paying in taxes so that you know how much to budget, how much to save, or how much to put aside before tax time comes. Fourth is that you want to be able to show investors or banks how well your business is doing. For some of you guys who are out there who are just starting, who didn't take any accounting course and you don't know any of the terms, but you hear them all the time, we can go through some of those keywords that you should at least know. So first off is, let's figure out what debit is. You hear about debit. So what debit means is that, for example, if you bought a camera, it means that your account has been debited a certain amount. So if I bought a camera for $2,000, it means my account has been debited $2,000. So money left my account. The next one is credit. If you say your account has been credited, for example, you have a client who pays you $1,000. It's $1,000 going into your account, so that your account has been credited $1,000. Next one is asset. Everybody talks about asset, but what is asset? If you are a freelancer, videographer, your asset is things you use to do your business. So for example, in that case, your cameras are your assets. Your laptop is an asset. These things are things that help you run your business. Now, what is liabilities? Now, liabilities is money you owe. Take, for example, your credit card. You borrow money from your credit card to start your business. You borrowed $5,000 from your credit card to start your freelance business. Well, that's a liability. You borrowed a loan, $100,000 loan from the bank to run your business. That is a liability. You got to make sure you keep track of those things too as well. So what is capital? Okay, capital is the money you use to start up your business. So take, for example, when we first started, I used my paycheck from where I used to work before. I used to work in the bank. And I used the money, my paycheck, saved up for I think about 3-4 paychecks, put it all together, and then end up buying our first camera, but most of all our gears, computers to edit, softwares, all of that. That is the capital I used to start up the business. So that's what you call capital. Now, income. This is money coming into your business. Income. That's what you always want. That's what we always want. We always want more income. So that's what income means. Now, expenses. Expenses are things you spend money on. So for example, if you spend money on buying lands, paying for softwares, these are all expenses you need to keep track of. A healthy business is one that has higher income, which is money coming in, and less expenses. Now, that's what you want to always keep track of. And if you can stay there, you have a good, profitable business. So now you understand what bookkeeping is. And then you ask yourself, how do you actually do proper bookkeeping? So there's 2 ways to do it. You can either use a software or you can do it manually. So using a software, you could easily get QuickBooks, which is one of the best, which is what I use. You can get QuickBooks and just link your accounts to QuickBooks. What this does is it just keeps track of every single transaction. And then you can just simply print a report and it shows you all your income, all the transactions that was coming in, or the money you made coming in, and also your expenses, everything you spent in one beautiful report. It does cost a hefty amount to pay monthly for it. And if you do not like that option, there's an alternative option, which is basically do it yourself, which is manually input the information into a spreadsheet. So you get a spreadsheet, you want to keep track of, you want to have a couple of tabs, your income and your expenses. Those are the basic things that you need to keep track of at the beginning. Okay, so now let's take a look at this Excel sheet that I made for small business owners. It's very easy to use. It's quite very simple. So let's look at some few things here. Some few things that we need to pay attention to is income. This is our revenue. This is money coming in. This is our expense. We want to keep track of how much we are spending. And then obviously income minus expenses equals to profit, whether that's a net profit or net loss. You want to know if you're making profits or if you are losing. So the most important category here is our revenue, which is our income over here. It's quite very simple. So let's work on this together. Take, for example, ABC Corp. But maybe let's say 20 units from us. We impute that 20 units. And then we say this cost $200 for them. So they paid us $200 to buy 20 units of stickers, for example. And then we can put in here notes and say this amount has been paid, just to make things easy. And then we simply put the date. Let's say this transaction happened November 1st of 2023. So that's how we record income. And then if you see over here, it's automatically shows up here as total income is $200, and it also shows up here as well. And then if you look over here, we do have a little chart that shows us how much we are making, which is income is $200. So let's add more. Let's assume XYZ, capital letter, I don't like that. So XYZ Corp, which is a company, maybe bought 10 units, so 10 stickers. So let's see, they bought 10 units, and this is paid as well, and this maybe took place on November 2nd. You see now that automatically calculates that number to 300, and we have the total income here as 300, and this changes, and as well as over here too as well, we can see the total income here shows 300 on this chart. Now this is for the income statement, so this is how you record income transactions that happen for your business. Now let's take a look at expenses. So expenses here, we have expense categories. So think of it like a shelf, and in the shelf you have certain folders, and then you label each folder as rent, cost of product. So let's take, for example, let's say we want to think of an expense here to put is maybe maybe we're paying for social media. Perfect. So now that automatically creates a category for you here. And if you want to see how it works, you go over to your daily transaction tracker, which is over here. If you scroll down, you see social media, which is what we just imputed over here. So that's what it is. So it just keeps track of every single transaction that happens on the social media. It just sums it up over here. So take, for example, we can describe here that we paid a social media manager. We paid them $1,000. Now we spent $1,000 on social media, and we can see it over here. It automatically adds that amount, 1,000, and you can see on this chart here it shows that our expenses has gone up by 1,000. Now let's assume we want to say we paid rent. Let's assume we paid rent as well for $1,000. You know, paid rent for November rent, and then here we just, like I said, search all the categories. See rent here, we have another rent for we have it populating over here for $1,000. So if you see our expenses here has gone up again, same as here too as well. And then if you see here your spending overview, it tells you where you're spending your money. So 50% of our expenses going to social media. We spend another $1,000 in rent. So let's do one more. Let's assume we are paying salary. Let's assume we had salary. We paid $2,000 salary. Oh, this is a terrible business. We are losing. Wow. Okay. So we paid salary for John. Perfect. And then we go over here, employee salary, select that. Perfect. So we spent 2,000 on salary. Now you can see it automatically adds up here, 2,000. And then you can look at your chat too as well. We spent 2,000. So we know, all right, the larger portion of our expenses is going towards salary, just as a glance. So that's why I like this. You can just log in real quick and just see, all right, where's most of our money going into? And that's how you'll be able to figure this out. And the reason why I say categories are nice is because it really makes this very organized. So take, for example, we have another employee and we pay them 1,500, right? And this is salary for Tom. Perfect. So we go salary again. Perfect. Now watch what it does. It adds 1,500 to this section here, employee salary. So now instead of it being 2,000 before, now it's 3,500. So now we can just look at its section and see how much we are spending in that section, right? So, and then it shows us over here too as well, really neatly too as well. So I really like having categories. It's really amazing, honestly, because I need to be able to just pop in there and just see, all right, where's all my expenses going? What am I spending money on? Right. So now this will give us a quick idea as to how to keep track of your transactions, how to enter your bookkeepings for your business. So take, for example, now let's look at this. This business here has an income of $300, but is spending over $5,500, and they're losing money. This is negative profit, so they're losing $5,200 as of right now. So just so that you know, this Excel sheet is provided for you. Just simply click on the link and you can have access to this. I think it was very helpful for me when I started out. So I'm hoping it will be very helpful to you too as well. So I hope this was valuable to you. Cheers. Have a great day.